Welcome to Moon Mind. In this video, you may finally understand why the mind can feel exhausted even after the body has slept. Sometimes the body rests for 8 full hours, yet something inside still wakes up tired. Because the deepest fatigue is not always physical. It comes from the unseen work of the mind. The endless effort of maintaining an identity. Protecting how you appear. Comparing yourself to others. Defending opinions you inherited rather than consciously chose. Holding together a version of yourself that requires constant attention just to remain believable. This labor is endless because the self being defended is not as solid as it seems. It is more like mist than stone. More story than substance. More habit than truth. And yet so much energy is spent protecting it. We build walls around air. We guard empty space as if it were treasure. We exhaust ourselves preserving an image that changes every time someone looks at it. Tonight's journey reveals exactly how this hidden exhaustion is created. And how it quietly dissolves. Over the next 3 hours, you will meet people who discovered that saying, "I don't know," can bring more peace than pretending certainty. You will encounter those who suffered for years under the weight of comparison, until they saw that worth was never something that could be measured on a scale. You will hear of people who fiercely defended borrowed beliefs, only to realize they had spent years protecting ideas that were never truly their own. Before we begin, let yourself settle completely. Somewhere tonight, people in quiet rooms across the world are doing exactly the same thing. Lying down. Softening into pillows. Letting the day fall away. Opening themselves to teachings that have eased human suffering for centuries. Adjust the blanket until the warmth feels just right. Let the jaw loosen. Let the shoulders fall away from the ears. Allow the face to soften. There is nothing to force. Nothing to get right. Just be here. Comfortable. Resting. Available to receive a different way of relating to your own mind. The Buddha taught that suffering does not begin with the world outside us. It begins when we cling to a false sense of who we believe ourselves to be. Tonight, we gently look through that illusion. Every morning, before you even leave your bed, the costume begins. Not only the clothes you choose, but the invisible role you prepare to play. At work, perhaps you wear competence. You nod even when uncertain. You choose careful words to hide confusion. You present steadiness, even when the mind feels scattered. With friends, maybe the role is ease. You reveal only the struggles that seem acceptable. You hide the needier parts. You keep vulnerability polished and controlled. Online, the performance becomes even more refined. A curated honesty. A selected authenticity. Flaws chosen carefully enough to feel human, but never enough to threaten the image. This performance requires vigilance. Did I say the right thing? Did they notice my hesitation? Did I appear too eager? Too distant? Too confident? Not confident enough? The questions continue because the identity being maintained is fragile. It is built from memory, expectation, comparison, and fear. Of course this is exhausting. It may seem like this is simply part of social life. But notice what happens the moment someone questions your competence. The tightening in the chest. The rush of defense before they have even finished speaking. The mind instantly collecting explanations, evidence, reasons why their perception must be wrong. This reaction is rarely about the words themselves. It is about protecting the image. The capable version. The together version. The worthy version. The self you have spent years assembling and presenting not only to others, but most intensely to yourself. The Buddha saw this in everyone. Kings. Merchants. Monks. Farmers. Scholars. Beggars. His posture carried expectation. His language was dense with philosophy. When he heard villagers praising Siddha, something tightened inside him. How could an ordinary householder be regarded as wise? A man who still lived among family, trade, and daily concerns. This struck directly at the identity he had spent decades constructing. For 40 years he had sacrificed comfort, wandered without a home, and devoted himself to the pursuit of knowledge. Wisdom, in his mind, belonged to people like him. And now a merchant was receiving the reverence he believed should belong to renunciants and scholars. What disturbed him was not Siddha's wisdom. It was the threat Siddha posed to the story he had built about himself. And that is where the real teaching begins. The philosopher did not arrive at Siddha's home with curiosity. He arrived with a wound disguised as confidence. Outwardly, he was composed. His robes were immaculate. His posture upright. His voice measured with the practiced calm of someone accustomed to being listened to. But beneath the surface, the mind was already preparing for battle. He was not simply coming to meet a wise man. He was coming to defend an identity. Siddha welcomed him with the simplicity of someone who had nothing to prove. No ceremony. No display. No effort to impress. The householder offered him a seat, tea, and silence. For a few moments, neither man spoke. Then the wanderer began. "I have heard," he said carefully, "that people here consider you deeply learned in the Buddhist teaching." Siddha smiled gently. "I only look carefully at what the mind is doing." The answer unsettled him. There was no claim. No performance of wisdom. No attempt to appear impressive. Only directness. So the philosopher pressed further. "For 40 years I have studied with great teachers," he said. "I have memorized doctrines, refined debate, and disciplined the mind through rigorous inquiry. Tell me, then, what makes your understanding greater than mine?" Siddha looked at him, not as an opponent, but as someone already suffering. And he asked a question so simple it slipped beneath the philosopher's defenses. "When someone disagrees with you," Siddha said softly, "what happens inside your body?" The wanderer blinked. This was not the kind of question he expected. He had come prepared for philosophy. For concepts. For sophisticated arguments. Instead, he was being asked to notice something immediate. At first, he answered from habit. "I respond with reason." Siddha shook his head, still kind. "No. Before the words. What happens first?" For the first time in years, the philosopher turned inward before turning outward. He noticed the chest. The subtle contraction. The quickening heat beneath the ribs. The tightening of the throat. The mind already assembling defense before truth had even been examined. He had never truly looked there. All his life he had studied thought. Very little time had been spent studying the one who was so desperate to be right. Siddha let the silence widen. Then he said, "That tightening is suffering." The words landed with unusual force. Not because they were intellectually complex. But because they named something the wanderer had lived inside for decades without recognizing. Every debate. Every correction. Every challenge. Every disagreement. The suffering had not come from other people. It had come from the internal labor of protecting the image of being wise. Siddha continued. The mind creates a version of itself. Learned. Respected. Superior. Certain. Then it spends enormous energy defending that image from anything that threatens it. The philosopher sat motionless. He could feel how much of his life had been spent in this exact mechanism. Not learning. Defending. Not wisdom. Image maintenance. Not